Hello, everybody. Hi. We're going to get started. I see so many people I like waving at. Hi, friends. Hi, everyone. Hello and welcome. So, before we get into our event, we want to acknowledge that this event is being hosted on the unceded traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires. The Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations. I started while I was still catching up with getting up here. I got so excited to see you all. We want to acknowledge that this event is being hosted on the unceded traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires. The Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sauk, and Fox nations, also called this area home. The region has long been a center for indigenous people to gather, trade, and maintain kinship ties. Today, one of the largest urban American Indian communities in the United States resides in Chicago, continuing to contribute to the vitality of this city and to celebrate their heritage, practice traditions, and care for the land and waterways. We invite you to explore the unceded homelands on which you find yourself as well, and to take this moment to honor all who came before us, indigenous peoples displaced by colonization, as well as those who built this country through uncompensated and compulsory labor, those enslaved, and those oppressed. We honor those who came before and those who continue to live on this land as we hold this shared space for art and expression. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to welcome you all to this space. I was thinking about this today, and I posted the last live version of our reading series in February of 2022. It featured Marty McConnell and Maya Marshall, two wonderful poets. And although we have been out in community in many, many ways over the 2 years of the pandemic, and the reading series has found a really wonderful online home in the past year, it just feels so good to be in person with all of you. So thank you for gathering here today. And you know, the Chicago Poetry Center has changed and grown in many, many ways over those 2 years too. So while we have a much bigger staff, we have many more programs happening all over Chicago using poetry in many ways, many more poets in residence on our teaching artists team. And one of the things that changed in that time is our mission. So I wanted to share our current mission with you, which is to connect people to poetry, equitably engage poets with community, and foster creativity and literacy in schools. And we do that. We do this work through several programs, and Helene is going to tell you a little bit about our arts education work in a moment, and Marty is going to tell you later about literary life. The other of those programs, our newest, is Critical Conversations, and this is a program that uses poetry to have challenging but necessary conversations around gender and race, ability, both in the workplace and beyond. So if you'd like to know more about that, you can ask any of our staffers or learn more at our table over there. And another one of those changes is our home. So we officially move into Haymarket House on August 1. So we're super excited to show you all our new digs tonight and welcome you all into this space. Thank you for helping us house warm our new space. And we want to thank Haymarket for their partnership, both in the space and in hosting events in this space. We also want to thank our event sponsors, Wintrust and Revolution Brewing. Thank you, thank you. And I want to thank the wonderful CPC staff who put this event together. Thank you to our teaching artists who are reading in it, and to Adrian for being our feature tonight. Thank you to our board members who are here tonight, our former board members who are here tonight. It's great to see you all. And with that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce a wonderful poet and my colleague, CPC's Director of Programs, Helena Chanzar.
Hi, everyone. I am excited that we get to gather here today to celebrate Chicago's vibrant poetry community and to welcome Adrian to our beautiful city. I'm especially happy to hear some poems from our poets in residence who are just incredible teaching artists and performers and human beings. Our education programs wouldn't be what they are without the skill, talent, and dedication of these poets. So please give them another round of applause. In CPC's in-school and out-of-school poetry residencies, poets in residence visit classrooms all over the city for 20 weeks. In their lessons, poets read and discuss poetry with students, and then they lead them to write and share their own original work. One of my favorite parts of my job is getting to read the student work that poets in residence publish on the school blogs on CPC's website. Between that and our end-of-year all-schools reading, it really is incredible to see all of the fun and inventive ways our poets get young people to engage in creative self-expression. Not only are our CPC poets in residence great teaching artists, they're also dynamic performers and readers. In our pop-up assemblies, our poets illuminate auditoriums and other event spaces with their original work. In assemblies featuring 3 performers who get students excited about telling their own stories, they also give the history of slam poetry in Chicago and play an interactive slam-style game that we like to call the Insta Poem. And just a plug, if you or anyone you know is interested in being part of this awesome team of poets in residence, we're currently hiring. So please check out our website, poetrycenter.org, to find out more about the application process. Finally, I can't say enough what a delight it's been to work with these phenomenal artists and educators, and I'm thrilled to hear their work tonight. Without further ado, and with lots and lots of warmth and adoration, I'll introduce our first reader. Fullamusu Bangura is a writer originally from Washington, D.C., and currently living in Chicago. They are the author of the essay book, Considers Lil' Kim Hardcore? Their poems have been published in New Delta Review and Apogee Journal, and they were a 2020 Best of the Net Poetry finalist. Please help me welcome Fullamusu.
Oh my God. Hello. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see all of your faces and be here in person with you all. I'm super excited to be here. I've been absolutely loving being a teaching artist with Chicago Poetry Center, and I'm really grateful to be here reading some poems with you all today. So the first poem that I will be reading is titled My Mother Sings the National Anthem. Oh, say, can you see? It is 5 a.m. and the babysitter watches my children. I reset the Metro bus route before dawn and float to work. By 2 years' time, my child walks to school and you cut her short. How do you say no culture is lost through the length of a proudly hailed name? My seed grows in my belly, Tyler House, then 14th Street. A child made up of carpet-burned legs, blue magic, and okra, and over the years, my sickly thing blooms spectacular. Amidst the smog and humid air and rot, I tell you, it is a miracle you did not kill us both. Where are your monuments to us? There is no perilous fight untethered to a green card. In my passport, I soften my eyes for the camera's flash. On your dollars, your saints look away. In this country, your language mangles community into something so fragile and strained. 2 M's refusing to touch, a distance eternal, why? In my language, when children ask why, we say, because why has a long tail. In yours, you ask why this response. I have not yet learned how to say, not all needs an answer, let it go. There is no freedom in isolation, no bravery in swallowed tears. My years here feel like years, or feel like germs in an incubator sometimes, multiplying themselves before I can catch my breath. Most days, my pain brings anthem form. The stanzas cannot contain themselves. I know sabi the words themselves. When my hand touches my heart, it is to heal the pain the only way I know. When I kneel, it is on my mother's old prayer mat, face to sun, hand to God. When I stand, it is because my back knows no other way. Believe me, in a few years, you couldn't tell me or the Statue of Liberty apart. Thank you all. I feel the love, I appreciate you all, thank you. The second poem that I'm reading is, I'm biased. I think this is my favorite poem that I've ever written, which is like a really big thing to say, but I really mean it about this poem, I think. This poem is called Wide Tooth. It's in the shape of a wide tooth comb, and it means a lot to me. I am still learning how to get all of the kinks out. I give myself grace. These tools, placed in my hands only just yesterday, how sometimes they slip when I tend to the crops. Handmade rows I crafted, tiny equators of earth I mapped out. Today, I learned myself a planet again. Tonight, I plant my knees into the ground and commit body. Untangle my vines. My mother's tool of choice bore more teeth, cut me. Instead, I'll choose the comb with more breathing room, breath of more lung, my northern star. I leave home for therapy, pulling my roots apart and still breathing, weeds. And when I say I am kinky, I mean I am learning all of the ways my knots create each other. When my hairstylist tells me to cut the split ends now, I obey. She uses a car metaphor I can't really remember, but it sticks. I claim the skies for my socks of flowers, raise them. Find a root to cling to and deem them lucky. My faith is a seed. Alrighty, you all. My last poem is a poem that I have never read before, but yeah, new poem. But this poem is a little hard for me to read. It is a poem that I wrote in honor of Mistress Velvet, who is somebody in the Chicago community who has gone too soon, but has had a major impact on my life and the life of others. So I wrote this poem in honor of them. Velvet Guzzle. When you come to us, stitched in silk, the weaver's thumb aches care. On a violet tufted throne, you tower, whip in hand, a crackle awaits care. The dawn wrangles poison tongues into psalm singers and unmakes care. How does one speak honestly at this altar? Begged you to this planet that forsakes care. The truth is, the mouths here have all broken at the hitches. It takes a village to mistake care. The truth is, we have all been dying to survive. A comrade becomes unliving and unbreaks care. The truth is, the gap between here and free is a canyon. Will we hike slow and long or fake care? The sickle has two sides. The poet, one pen of grief, and you shimmering and coast made. Take care. Thank you all. Without further ado, I want to spend some time giving some love and shouting out Teresa, who is our next reader. So can we take a minute and shout out Teresa with some snaps? I'm sorry, I'm in like my teaching artist bag right now. I'm so sorry. Okay. Teresa Dzieglewicz' first book of poetry, Something Small of How to See a River, was selected by Taimba Jess for Topilos Press Dorset Prize and is forthcoming in March 2023. Her first children's book, co-written with Kimamila Locke, is forthcoming from Chronicle Books in 2025. She received a Pushcart Prize, Best New Poets, the Auburn Witness Prize, and the Palette Poetry Prize, the Ginkgo Prize for Eco-Poetry, as well as a grant from the Elizabeth George Foundation, which will support her next poetry project, an exploration of motherhood, adoption, ecosystems, and the Chicago River. Can we give some love to Teresa Dzieglewicz?
Hi, oh my goodness, what an honor to share space with those incredible and powerful poems. Thank you so much. I'm not using this correctly. All right. Okay, all right, you all can hear me. I'm pretty loud, so I'm not that worried about that. But okay, and just thank you so much to everybody, oh my goodness, to everybody at CPC who planned this and organized this amazing work, to fellow poets in residence, to Adrian, just I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed. This is just beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm going to stop rambling and read some poems, but thank you. Maybe worth knowing for this poem is that Haumea is a really far away exoplanet that's like a really wild shape because it got hit by stuff. Astro. Yeah, people think. All right. Abad after another school massacre. Your sheets are threaded with stars shooting across their cartoon sky. But here, at least, they stop, halted mid-trajectory. I'm learning to ask for so little. All I want is not to have to bury my head in your cosmos of curls to fall asleep. You're 4, your body a soft bag of sleepy questions. What was Haumea's name before it got collided? What musical instrument sounds the most like a ghost? I told someone once you want to be an astrobiologist, and you corrected me to say that you already are. I know it's true, you scan the stars at night for breath, believe someone is living on planet 9, and one day you will see them. Your body heavies into mine, lungs click into a deeper and slower gear. You are as small as a galaxy in my arms. I sleep here all night in the twin bed, swearing I won't anymore, as if I could hold your breath, my body, your locket, my body, your satellite, as if you weren't already your own solar wind, as if I could protect you. In the morning, we adjust your bunny hat like a helmet. You will go to your school. I will go to mine. I kiss you. We zip your coat, imagine your journey to other worlds, and the teeth clench firm as fatigues. Say, astronaut, I kiss you. Thank you. All right, that one is a new poem, and this is a very old poem that didn't get to go in my book, so I want to read it. All right. The only vegetarian at the branding. I like this. My body pinning down his, coarse calf hide filling the hole frayed through my jeans. With my elbow, I press the flat of its cheek onto hoof-stomped dirt and dead grass that tangles like hair. My thick braid hangs across his throat, an echo of the rope that dragged him from the aluminum pen where his mother keens and men yell, "She won't eat him, but she sure can wrestle him." For then, I dig my knee deeper, grip tighter, and pull back his jerking leg, turn his belly skyward like screwing open a tobacco tin. The men holler for me. Cody, my classroom aide, who I see usually stuffed in a child's chair, teaching kids to count, pulls the buck knife from between his teeth, slices the thin skin of testicles, tosses them in the bucket filled with balls, pale moons rivered with blood. Some days, I want to be a man, a large one. Somebody, nobody would ever interrupt or call pretty in dwindling gas station lights. Someone you would never follow in your car, hanging out like a loose tooth, yelling things I could do with my mouth. Cody's brother, in a beige baseball cap, pulls the iron from the branding barrel. For him, hot metal is money, a job, the weave of the land. But I, who catch spiders delicately between magazines and juice glasses, walk them to the prettiest bushes. I, who once bathed a chicken, massaged her hip for hours to free an egg. I, who teach my students power is for sharing a rope to pull each other up. I'm the one proud, hollering now as he touches iron to skin. Only in the shower that night, as the scent of burnt flesh, charred fur, unweave from my hair, spiral like smoke around my wrists. Do I wonder what wire fences I've let grow in my chest? Do I wonder how to be the woman I say that I am? For dinner, Cody's mom made everyone steak. My PB&J on the side of the tray, white bread eagerly absorbing the blood. In the cramped yellow kitchen, his brother throws testicles into hot oil. Miss D, he yells, you can't leave a branding without eating some balls. They're free range, Cody offers. Because I want anything but weakness, I slide the hot chunk of flesh into my cheek. It resists the point of my teeth. It's rubbery, I say, hard as fuck to chew. Thank you so much. Belated apologies for not telling you about all the cut off testicles in that poem. All right, it's such an incredible honor to get to introduce the one and only Joy Young. Woo! Sorry, I should not yell into a microphone. She's a storyteller and educator born and raised here in Chicago. She holds a bachelor's degree in fiction from Columbia College, and a master's in writing and publishing from DePaul University. Her work has appeared in Poetry East, Lunch Ticket, and the Locust 8. Sorry to check that Roman numeral. And the Locust 8 Gallery Showcase at the Martin. She is incredible, and what a gift to get to share this space with her. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right. Ooh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. I really loved your poems. You really brought the energy into the room, so thank you so much. All right, so hi. Ooh, there we go. Hi, my name is Joy, and it's great to see everyone in person, familiar and new faces, so hello. And my first poem I'm going to read to you is inspired by Disney. So like everyone knows, Disney has come out with live action movies of some of our classic movies. And in about 2023, they would be doing the live action of The Little Mermaid. But this time we're going to have a Black Ariel. And it did cause some controversy when it was first announced, and there was a lot of negativity on social media. So this is my response to that. In response to Halle Bailey being cast as Ariel, why are some people so upset about a pretty brown-skinned girl with long dreadlocks being called a mermaid? Black folks have always been secretly mermaids. We are often treated as supernatural creatures instead of human beings, hunted for our magic. We are highly melanated and never seem to age. Crowned with hair that coils into the infinite spiral of seashells, we are gifted with voices that can mesmerize and stir up storms. Like fish, we were dragged in nets and hauled away on ships. Our heritage stripped scale by scale until we learned how to walk on foreign lands. We forgot how to swim. Our captors taught us to fear the water. Yet, we are more than myths told for entertainment on a giant screen. The Disney franchise does not need to sell us our own history that still flows in the tides of our DNA. Thank you. All right, for my last poem, which is more uplifting, and if you are a Marvel or DC superhero fan, this one is especially for you. As a 90s kid, oops, sorry, forgot the title. Sorry, guys. So the students I've worked with this past year, we wrote ode poems, and ode poems celebrate people, places, and things, and I decided to celebrate storm. So this is my poem called Ode to Ororo, Munroe, AKA Storm. As a 90s kid, I used to sit in front of the TV after school at 3 o'clock, snacking on my pizza Lunchable, waiting for you to levitate onto the screen. Rocking your silver white hair, you were Mother Nature's child, creating hurricanes with just the flick of your fingers. When Elsa was in diapers trying to make snowflakes, you were freezing enemies in your path with that black girl magic swag. Storm, you came from a long line of powerful witches and priestesses, a royal Kenyan princess born in Harlem, New York, the punk rocker who fought for the equal rights of mutants, the thief with the heart of gold that fed hungry orphans. You were the unsung hero in the X-Men universe. Wolverine might have had sharp metal claws and Jean Grey had her telekinesis, but you were in Africa being worshipped as a rain goddess, ending droughts, protecting endangered species. In the Marvel DC crossover comics, you once had a battle with Wonder Woman and won. Even King T'Challa begged you to be his queen of Wakanda, but you never liked to brag. You wanted to remain classy and humble, but no one should get on your bad side, unless they wanted to be hit with a lightning bolt. For young Black girls, you taught us that our voices could topple obstacles in our path like earthquakes, set society ablaze like a forest fire. I'm sorry that movies today deprive this generation of your true magnificence. But just know that you, Ororo, Munroe, are a storm to be reckoned with. Creating beauty from destruction, the auntie that gave tough love, but also offered wisdom to teen mutants everywhere. That's why, in my opinion, you, Ororo Munroe, are the most powerful hero of them all. Thank you. All right, I'm really excited to introduce our next poet, Larry Dean. He was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. His numerous books include Frequently Asked Questions, Muse, Activities of Daily Living, Brief Nudity, Basic Cable Couplets, A Breathe, About the Author, and I Am Spam. He is also an acclaimed singer-songwriter whose latest solo album is Good Grief, Product Placement, the sophomore album from his band, The Injured Parties. So please have some awesome applause for Larry Dean.
Wow. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to see a crowd of people, yes. And thank you for, thank you. And thank you for the nice introduction. It's gonna be hard to follow, Joy, but I'll do the best that I can. So I've got 3 poems for you, and the first one I'm going to read is Evel Knieval, Reincarnated as a Physician. If I have to jump a 20-foot-long box of rattlesnakes and 2 mountain lions in order to entice new patients, then that's what I'll have to do. Nurse, get me 12 cars and a cargo van. Stat. Time heals all broken backs and concussions after getting thrown off and run over by your own customized motorcycle made of steel, aluminum, and fiberglass, weighing about 300 pounds. Sailing over 13 Mack trucks with a Harley-Davidson XR 750 a day keeps a tank full of live sharks away. I prescribe plenty of jumping 15 Ford Mustangs. Open your mouth and say, ah, while I attempt to jump 141 feet over the fountains at the Caesars Palace Casino in Las Vegas, skid and tumble end over end across a parking lot, suffer a crushed pelvis and femur, fractures to the hip, wrist, and both ankles, and a concussion that kept me in a coma for 29 days. An ounce of 13 Pepsi delivery trucks is worth a pound of 50 stacked cars. I will continue with diligence to keep abreast of advances in daredevilry. I will jump without exception all canyons, Greyhound and double-decker buses, and B-29 bombers. With purity, holiness, and beneficence, I will pass my life and practice my art. Thank you. Whoa. Applause. How nice. So, this is such a beautiful building. I'm part of, obviously, a crew. Well, not obviously, I've learned of uptown poets that are also teaching here. And I live like 2 blocks from here. So this poem might cause like a rift in the universe if I read it. It's called the Carillon. It's actually about the Carillon. It's over here at St. Mary of the Lake. The Carillon. Did I point in the right direction for St. Mary of the Lake? I think I did. Mr. Directions here. In the humid haze of a summer afternoon after a day's work and fretting, foreheads frozen, creased with constant worries, backs aching, eyes bleary, we hear the Carillon chiming through our neighborhood, music drifting over rooftops and along frantic streets, a tune wrung from times long gone, honeyed notes afloat in the air. Fuck it. You don't know how to react to that one, do you? You live with the Carillon and tell me what you think. Yeah, all right. So, for my last poem, this is called My Biology of Louis Pasteur. And I've been teaching for the Poetry Center for almost 20 years. And once I was at a school, not the one I'm at now, and I was waiting for my class to come back from lunch, and I was looking at all these biography projects that were on the wall, and it inspired this poem. Again, My Biology of Louis Pasteur. Frenchman Louis Pasteur was born December 27th, 1822, which was a very, very long, long time ago. His father was a tanner and enjoying much time on France's beaches. His mother was a mother, and the Pasteurs lived in the ancient town of Dole, which is where bananas come from. They sent Louis to the school in Our Boys, which was all boys, because there wasn't no girls to distract him. He enjoyed drawing his family and fiends. Louis went to the Royal College where he knew kings and studying science degrees 2 years later at 20, then a professor of 26. His girlfriend, wife Marie Laurent, had 5 children, but only 2 of them lived in France. Louis studied fermentation and how it was like a cousin to alcoholic like beer and Budweiser. He was the process of pasteurization for milk going in the pasture to see the cows for killing a virus and harmful of bacteria. Then milk is not pointed to boil, which would charge the flavor, but a temper sure to kill the bacteriases. It's then chilled and must be drunk till cold. Louis became the germ theory of disease because that diseases was accused by germs attacking the body from the outside. Silkworms was a large industrial in France at that time. People raised in the homes or in the sheds. The silky worms ate leaves so their cocoons become a Chrysler with a single silk thread, 1,000, 3,000 foot long. In 1849 in France, the worms got a disease and began to be dead. It spread worldwide besides Japanese. In 1865, Mr. Pasteur found core puddles in the infect worms. The worms would impress each other. He helped the worms' owners to find a way to eggs that was not invested. Louis then became a stroke and paralysis. For several months, he was completely paralysis. He was only 45, then too he began to use of his body. He found the disease in the body. His Vaseline for a disease in chickens and animals called anthrax. Louis was, again, people such disease like cholera, diphtheria, tuberculosis, and smallpox. Thousands of people since that time has received rabies. The Pasteur institution was found in 1888 in Paris, France. When he died, Louis was buried. I have extensive notes on that, so if you need it, it's there for you. So you've been very kind. Thank you so much. Isaac Ginsberg Miller is a Chicago-based writer and educator whose poetry has been published in journals such as Callooh, Colorado Review, Sonora Review, The Shallow Ends, and Zone 3, as well as the anthologies of People's Atlas of Detroit and Uncommon Core, Contemporary Poems for Learning and Living. His chapbook Stopgap won the Sow's Ear Poetry Review Chapbook Contest and was published in 2019. My God, it's Isaac Ginsberg Miller.
Well, thank you all for being here. Cosmogony. In January, the birds awakened mid-flight. In February, the bats left their cave and we called it abandoned. There are other words for this, other names. In March, a civilization grew, limbs reaching in all directions before its collapse, snapped by a bolt of lightning. In April, a ream of gauze unfurled, masking my face in muslin. The holes became thinner. In May, I learned to breathe. My body, a small weight, placed upon the scales of progress, tallied alongside caravels filled with bullion, molasses, and the captive many. The holes, long swords on which blood ran and was wiped away. In June, a massive anvil was placed in the port town center, where a blacksmith pounded my face into the shape of a metal disc. In July, the metal became a container for fire and flesh to be sacrificed. In August, I splintered into 1,000. In September, I was born to a couple who had not made love. In October, another civil war, always more civil dead, the tower of language falling and its architects scattered. In November, I began walking, the constellations, paper lanterns, drawing me closer. In December, flocks of angels dropped from the sky like electrocuted moths. In January, I returned, shaking. Scheherazade's dream. Did she? In daylight after the murderer king went about his day and she collapsed into sleep that was not, even in her body's withdrawal descending deeper beneath the palace. But did she dream? In the scant hours between gins and castles of basalt, one-eyed men and thrice-spared merchants, did her mind dare to wander, to imagine bathing in a pool of salt, washing her skin with a cool blue stone. Enough has been said of the body's ability to heal. What of our ability to survive without healing? To cradle the snout of the beast to our breast and sing him to sleep, to begin the story again. Works cited. I chose not to cite a violence. I chose the site of the Statue of Liberty from the ferry. I chose Ellis Island, not La Frontera. I chose not to cite Ansaldua, Lord, Spillers, Fanon, Winter, Césaire, Leduc, Du Bois, Boggs, etc. I chose the sight of the same. I chose to avert my eyes. I chose to stare. Choice is fictive. It was the slave ports, the lynch mobs, the red lines that made us. Europe is literally the creation of the third world, says Fanon. I chose to cite my ethnic studies major. I chose not to cite that one time in high school when my friend said, I chose to cite my ethnic friend. I chose not to cite that one time my aunt said, I chose to speak at the protest. I chose not to cite that one time my kind old Hebrew school teacher started talking about. I chose to pick my battles. Is there a point at which art becomes betrayal? A point where betrayal becomes an art? I chose not to cite. Or I did out of guilt, or I did out of self-righteousness. And when the Panthers held the gun, and when AIM held the gun, and when Mandela held the gun, and when Leila Khaled held the gun, and when Lolita Lebron held the gun, and when Marissa Alexander held the gun, and when Corinne Gaines held the gun, what did I choose? Thank you all. This is my last poem, which is the title poem from my chapbook, Stopgap. The crickets thread their song through the night silk dark. In my palm, your hand becomes a knuckled fruit. Overhead, 100 streaks of black, dotted with pins of fire. The path we walk is dirt diminished to granules of sand. This world, too, will be ground down, and sooner than we think. This much I know. Your fingers, the fence post, a horned owl perched on a forked branch, distant stranger outlined in the road, a towering demon or an elk. Let us join him, rejoicing in the end of time. It is my supreme pleasure to introduce Timothy David Rey, who is Timothy David Rey is a current two-time recipient of the Changing Worlds Artswork Fund Survive and Thrive Grant and a 2022 Lambda Literary Fellow for Emerging LGBT+ Voices. His work has been published and performed at the Poetry Foundation, Black Horse Review, Obsidian, 60 Inches from Center, Steppenwolf Theater, and elsewhere. His book of poetry and performance, Little Victories, was published in 2012 by the LGBT imprint Newtown Rights Press. Give it up for Timothy David Rey.
I'm going to read one poem. Tonight is a new poem. This is your poem. It is a new poem. In 1980, there was a film called Fame. And I was told that people didn't know what Fame was now, so I hope I can change that. People don't know what Fame is anymore. There's this film called Fame, and it was about a group of multiracial students who went to a New York Performing Arts School. The English teacher was played by Amira. Here's Amira. She is a famous comedic actor's mother. And in part of the film, the students all went out into the street and caused a traffic jam, dancing to the film's theme song. Here they are dancing. And the lead of the film, one of the leads of the film, was Latina actress Irene Cara. This poem is called Ode to Irene Cara. It starts with the epigraph, fame, I'm gonna live forever. I want to stop traffic in Midtown Manhattan. Creating new, vocalize the highs and the locals to the through line on the boom boxes, busting out windows, smoldering offside streets, pummel smoke, bounce off car doors as people have no chance but to force fling themselves downtown. I wanna have Ben Stiller's mom be my high school English teacher who goes way out of her way to be tough enough to help a queer, artsy, brown-skinned kid like me with promise. I wanna sparkle side right up next to Irene. I mean, as her classmate Lissando's the 88s with the backside of his fingernail on tusk ivory keys as you sirens sing, please, out here on my own. I wanna transmit that 80s multicultural fever that never did deliver. I want to get lost and leave those cornrows, have him sashay me to class, my trapper keeper plus to his chest. If this is where the best start pain and sweat, I want Ben Stiller's mother to be mine. Ever-suffering, gravel-mouthed, trench coat wearing, for pocket knives at the school, front door checking, Kleenex blowing, hospital hallway sobbing, inner city commuting, Big Apple taxi cab riding, performing arts high school English teacher who never got enough. I wanna. I mean, you knew even back then that big things do fall too, even in New York. That's all I wanna rewind. Sing. Stop traffic in Midtown Manhattan. Good. Now sing it again. Thank you. My absolute pleasure, Tarnynon Onumonu. She is a friend and becoming a better friend. We are co-curating a project in the park where we get to host poets every week downtown in this beautiful park. It's been my pleasure to work with her to find these poets and to sit in this beautiful weather and listen to them read. Tarnynon is a poet and licensed paraprofessional. She is perpetually grateful for the opportunity to use her passion for art as a strand of connection between herself, others, and especially youth. Tarnynon.
It is not fair to follow Tim.
You're great too!
Hey! Thank you, CPC, for this opportunity to learn and share for the past 3+ years. I've grown with the organization and seen it grow, and I'm just amazed. And I'm always referring friends and fellow poets in community to CPC, and I'm just so grateful to have a hub where I can invest and it also invests in me as well. So that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So I got a couple 2, 3, I don't know. And I've been thinking about spaceships. I'm always trying to escape somewhere. And I'm also thinking about prison. So this first one is called Portals. It's 12:11 a.m. in Jeffrey Manor, Chicago, and there's a spaceship orbiting my family home. We stay right near the plasma center where cigarette butts and loose change intermingle with frozen soil. Here, time drips and coagulates with passionate intention. I never know when I'll be taken up. The event is always unexpected, like walking into my mother's room and finding Narnia as a child. For a while, I ignored the door to yonder space and continued about my days, filled with the avoidance of dishwashing and fetching glasses of water for guests. They were play cousins and uncles and aunties who I saw so often that I'd ask, Mom, how are we related to such and such? To this, she'd laugh and explain kinship ties and how in Liberia, there are no aunties and uncles, just brothers and sisters. And this also applies to the play ones too. Anywho, yes. I found Narnia in my mother's room. It's been too long since to recall the day or exactly what I was searching for, but it doesn't matter because I was always fumbling through my mom's closet. I wanted to try on her clothes, look for change, and peek at documents that I didn't understand hiding in her bureau tucked in the back corner. I'd made a habit of walking in to look down, and then one day, out of nowhere, I looked up and saw it. It was a door, unlocked, and all I had to do was push it just above my head, but I was too small, so I waited. My sacred space, and one cannot simply access sacred space. They must be let in. Even as a child, I knew this. I also knew that converging the two worlds, our home and Narnia, might destroy them. What if I pushed the door and was greeted by nothing but mouse carcasses and dust mites? What if there were only dead things on the other side? I don't know. It's not a poem. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But yeah, it's gonna be in my little chapbook that I'll be publishing, self-publishing at the end of the summer. And this next one, Exodus, is going to be a part of it too. Exit this monotonous cycle of death and disillusionment. Send out distress signals from where I rest. We're blessed, but need guidance. Some left the keyhole just to get locked in, locked down for the win of for-profit politics, selling sin, caging men and women and children in the pen. I pen this story, but lack experience, vicariously knowing this happened to my friends. Like a friend I met again after he was admitted back into the keyhole. Say them blue folks took him, booked him for 9 months plus, 23 and 1, and I be the last one he remember. His absence confirmed this. Must have been spaceships above where he lived. I'd ask old friends where he'd been, and they just look down and shake their heads. Been over a year now, ain't seen him since. Must have beamed him up again. This last one is called 2-3 Style. And hey, yeah, I did it. I performed it for the first time in Scheherez's workshop online. Yeah, talk to her about that. Yeah, word Fetty, shameless plug. All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, you know. So once again, this is called 2-3 Style, and I'm not really a basketball fan, but I am a fan of people, and Kobe Bryant is a prolific figure. And you know, in his death, I wanted to write something motivational. So I created this little style, 2-3 Style, and I don't know. I hope y'all like it, whatever. All right. Climb out, I dare you. Leave this down bad, deep bottom, triple black, envision sonar, forget seeing, start feeling good vibrations. Get up, dust off, allow yourself another chance to be. Come now, not tomorrow. This is the call. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I was like, I didn't get to introduce the next speaker, but it's Marty. Yeah.
Please give another round of applause to our incredible voice tonight. I think, the students that they work with know that they have incredible teachers, and they don't know, though. They don't know about all this. They don't know about all this. So we'll let them know. Thank you so much. It was amazing, amazing. I have the great honor of doing two things right now. Well, let's say three things. Number one, I'm going to invite us all to stretch, right? Just move your body a little bit. Yeah, you're in wooden chairs. It's all good. We've got one section left, right? Yeah, wiggle it out, wiggle it out. I love you. You're so good. You're just like, yeah, I'm moving it. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to also, dangle in front of you the fact that, we have our featured poet, our spotlight up next. And then after that, there's snacks. So, stick around. Snacks in the garden afterwards. And I went to Costco, so please stay. Please stay. There are mountains of potato chips. I don't have a good sense of scope. Okay. So I'm going to talk just really briefly about our Literary Life program at the Chicago Poetry Center. Part of that, it's really our way of contributing to the literary life of the city of Chicago and trying to create places like this for folks to come together and hear this extraordinary work and share space and time. We are going to transition our Blue Hour workshop and reading series to being in person as long as we can. Don't make promises in an apocalypse, but we're gonna go ahead and do it here for now. So we'll be right here at Haymarket, the third Wednesday of every month, starting in September. September 20th is our kickoff for that. We will have a generative writing workshop that'll take place, and then immediately following that, we'll have a reading with two features. September, we have Felita Hicks and Kila Ratsavi. Super exciting. Also, interestingly, both fairly recent Chicago transplants. So maybe that's like our theme for the summer and fall. We also have, as Timothy mentioned, a fantastic series going on all the way through September, every Tuesday, right? Down in the West Loop, check that out. There's information on the table about it. There's a featured reader and an open mic, right? I think there's like one open mic in the city now. So now there's two. So check it out, read your own work. Here's some amazing other stuff. I have the great joy and privilege of introducing Adrian Matejka, recent Chicago transplant. Yes. It's possible that I, had a sense he was coming here for this little bitty job at being the editor of Poetry Magazine. And then maybe I saw something on Instagram where he posted a story about moving here, and maybe I DM'd him like a 22-year-old and was like, don't you want to read for the Chicago Poetry Center? And he said yes. So we're here tonight. Super, super thrilled to have him in the city and have him with us this evening. As I mentioned, he is the editor now of Poetry Magazine. He has received fellowships from people you might have heard of, like the Lannan Foundation and the Guggenheim, and all manner of fancy stuff. I just want to say that I just adore Adrian's work, because it, to me, is something that I think of as poems of yes. Like, they just say yes to everything. Like, they say yes to the grime, and they say yes to the glory, and they say, like, yes to the pavement, and yes to the trees, and yes to singing and yes to dancing and yes to just like passing out in exhaustion. So he is the author of many, many books, 2 of which will be on sale afterwards. You should stop by and see him. One is this like sparkly business here. It looks like a CD. The other is the latest book, Somebody Else Sold the World. In one of his poems, he says, history is whatever we want it to be. And I just love that. So without further ado, Adrian.
Peace, Chicago. It is so good to be here with you in person and also as part of your community. That was a fantastic reading. Thank you so much for sharing your work and for making space for me. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Chicago Poetry Center. I've admired your work from afar. Thank you, Haymarket Books. I've got your books on my shelves. This is a confluence of a lot of things that matter to me. There are a lot of friends here who are doing some serious work, and I'm grateful to be part of it. So I was listening. Usually I have like a set list because I'm a Virgo, but instead I decided to listen to what was being read and pick some poems out to read, sort of in conversation with you all. So I hope this will make a little bit of sense. I think I have a schedule for it. We'll see. So thank you again. This is a poem called Unfunky UFO because I too was trying to get someplace else, which is how I ended up here. I mentioned the guy who tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan, John Hinckley. I don't name him, but he's in the poem. And also Jodie Foster, the actor. Unfunky UFO. The first space shuttle launch got delayed until Sunday, so we had to watch the shuttle's return to Earth in class instead. PS-113's paunchy black and white rolled in, its antenna adjusted sideways and down for better reception. That same day, Garrett stole my new pencil box. That same day, Cynthia peed her jeans instead of going to the bathroom and letting Garrett steal her pencil box. Both of us too upset to answer questions about space flight, so we got sent to the back of the class. I smelled like the kind of shame that starts a fight on a Tuesday afternoon. Cynthia smelled like pee and everyday Jordache. The shuttle made its slick way back to Earth, peeling clouds from the monochromatic sky, and we all, even the astronomically marginal, were winners. American, because a few days before, a failed songwriter tried to put a bullet in the president in the name of Jodie Foster. The shuttle looked like a bullet, only with wings and a cockpit, and when it finally landed, the class broke into applause, and the teacher snatched a thinning American flag from the corner, waved it back and forth in honor of our wounded president and those astronauts. I should have said that title came from a Parliament Funkadelic. That's probably the most important part, isn't it? We're really close to Graceland Cemetery, where Jack Johnson is buried, and so I wanted to read a couple of poems in Jack Johnson's voice. And forgive me for this being a little bit disjointed. Like I said, I was really inspired by the work you all were sharing, and just want to maintain the energy that you had. So the 2 poems I'm going to read are both in Jack Johnson's voice. The first one is called Battle Royale. And for those of you who don't know Jack Johnson, he was the first black heavyweight champion. And he lived in Chicago for a long time. And 2 of his wives were buried in Graceland. He wanted to be buried next to captains of industry because that's how he imagined himself to be. Even though his parents were enslaved. It's a really complicated dude. It's called Battle Royale. Back then, they'd chain a bear in the middle of the bear garden and let the dogs loose. Iron chains around a bear's neck don't slow him too much. A bear will always make short work of a dog. Shakespeare said Sackerson did it more than 20 times to dogs and wild cats alike. And since most creatures are naturally afraid of bears, there wouldn't be much of a show in the bear garden. So the handlers sometimes put the bear's eyes out or took his teeth to make the fight more sporting. I believe you need eyes more than you need teeth in a fight, but losing either makes a bear a little less mean. Once baiting was against the law, some smart somebody figured colors would fight just as hard if hungry enough. So they rounded up the skinniest of us, had us stripped to trousers, then blindfolded us before the fight. They turned us in hard circles a few times on the ring steps like a motor car engine before pushing us between the ropes. When the bell rang, it seemed like I got hit from 8 directions. I didn't know where those punches came from, but I swung so hard, my shoulder hadn't been right since, because the man said, only the last darky on his feet gets a meal. It's a true story. The man started being a boxer in battle royales, and they blindfold him and throw him in there. And that's how he started. And then when he became heavyweight champion, he would referee those battle royales because he didn't think there was anything wrong with them. There's a story that they rang the bell one time when he was referee, and he didn't get out before the people started swinging, and some poor blindfolded kid hit Jack Johnson, so Jack Johnson knocked him out. I don't know what the metaphor is there. I'm trying to find this poem. I haven't read from this book in a minute. He had gold teeth, right? And he didn't need them, he just got them. And so I want to read this poem called Gold Smile, so forgive me. Like I said, I haven't read from this in a bit. The poem's called Gold Smile, and it has an epigraph from Shakespeare, who's Jack Johnson's favorite author. Teeth hadst thou in thy head when thou was born, to signify thou camest to bite the world. And that's from Henry VI. And I'll just be honest, since it's just us, right? I had no idea. I just searched Shakespeare looking for teeth. And of all the things this man wrote, he only put, there's only 3 instances of the word teeth in it. And that was the one that seemed like it made sense for the poem. Gold Smile. They call teeth dent in France, and the name makes sense the way teeth do what they do to bacon and shoulders and cakes. The French word for gold is or, so when the folks in Paris describe my smile, it sounds like what happens when I punch a door. Dent's door. Dent's door, the French children say when I open wide. Dent's door, Etta said when she locked herself in the powder room. Tommy Burns said Dent's door when I was hooking him into asking for forgiveness. His people back in Canada would have said the exact same thing if they were in Sydney to witness our spectacle. Before we got into the ring, I told Tommy, the only reason I got these gold uppers is to make every bite of my food twice as expensive as it used to be. Maybe if it's tired with y'all, I want to read one more of those. I don't know. Jack Johnson comes around and then he just doesn't want to go. So I should say, I should probably be promoting myself too, right? I have a graphic novel about Jack Johnson that's going to come out in February. So that's I started this project in 2005, so it'll be 18 years between the start of it and when I finally finish my time carrying this story. It's been incredible. All right, so this the last one I'm going to read from that stuff is called Il Travatore, after Verdi's opera. Verdi was Jack Johnson's favorite composer. And I mentioned Etta in the last poem. Etta is Jack Johnson's wife, and she was white, and she was a socialite. It's a very complicated thing, much more complicated than I'm saying right now. You're going to find out in the poem anyway, she killed herself. And he found her and was in a lot of ways responsible. Il Travatore. The first time I heard the aria, it was like sunup after the great storm, the woman's voice rising, then rising more as if the want of it all wouldn't allow another breath. Like road work when you punched yourself out, like Tommy Burns catching my gut hook, like the first I saw of Etta, like the sound of the crowd in Reno when Jeffries couldn't go on, like going up the steps of the Cafe de Champion after a crash of gunshots in Etta's rooms, like finding Etta on the floor, a halo of blood getting bigger by the minute, like the nurse is not nursing, but crying and pointing at the gun, still hot in Etta's own hands. Like realizing Etta's still breathing, whispering a libretto on the heels of her last breath. You did this, Papa. You did all of it. So, I love that you all are so generous, but you don't have to clap for me. I'm up here making a fool of myself most of the time. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. So that's from The Big Smoke, if you want to learn more about Jack Johnson. So I'm going to read some poems from Somebody Else Sold the World and this book, Maggot Brain and Standing on the Verge of Getting It On. It's like 2 books. I did this project with Third Man with some artists. It was how I made it through the pandemic, I wrote both of these books between, almost all of the poems in these projects between March 2020 and October 2020. There are a few poems that I'd had before that. So I thought that this Somebody Else Sold the World was going to be a book of love poems because I'm really bad at writing them. And I thought, how you grow as a writer is to do things that make you uncomfortable. So I was like, let me try to write some poems like Pablo Neruda, or June Jordan, these love poems that just shake me, Didn't work. The pandemic happened, and then I started writing about that and the protests and love still. So I'm going to read a few. Hopefully I won't have to explain much. There are multiple poems with the same title in the book. It comes from a David Bowie record called The Man Who Sold the World. It became popular again because of Nirvana for a certain group of people, but I had the original record. I was always a fan of Bowie. I think he might have been the first white performer to go on Soul Train. Either him or, it was either him or Elton John. It was either him or Elton John, I can't remember which one. So this is the beginning of the pandemic. Somebody else sold the world. And before I knew it, the violet sky flagged with the sun's violent demands for magnolias in bloom, natural light, any place magnanimous without locks or doors, different kinds of masks for being and breathing. The antagonists with their vanity tans and usual mischiefs whistled jingles about liberties and war while we buttoned up in our confinement and we dreamed about hugging. We talked about was and when we missed our friends and dentist appointments. Molars dropped out without breathable air. Hair forgot its natural colors without testimonies at intersections and barbecues. Words lost their family recipes. Friends lost their words, then lost their parents. A mass few found love somehow in the gerrymandered grocery lines and farmers' fields upturned with unsellable vegetables. So the antagonists cornered the curfews, manufacturing arguments with guns at the ready like henchmen. The air around us was so ripe, it might have broken in half if we could touch it. Y'all remember that? Like at the very beginning? I mean, we're still in it. And so I thought by the time this book came out, we'd be done, right? But obviously not. So these antagonists pop up a lot. It's mostly Trump and his cabal, but sometimes it's my neighbors. I was writing this when I lived in Indianapolis still, and I had some really wonderful, generous human beings around me, and also this one motherfucker with a Trump flag and a Confederate flag next to it, and it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. I lived downtown in Indianapolis. I wasn't out in Greenwood or someplace. I was in the city. So how this started out being a book of love poems in part was because I had a very acrimonious divorce a while ago, and I never wrote about it. I was trying to figure out how to. And so this poem is about that a little bit. Well, not a little bit, it's about that. It's called It Was Over Way Back Then. It was over way back then because of wanton tumble, because of word crumbles in the kitchen's halogen. Nah, separate bedrooms for years, and here I am again, up top in the kitchen light, out in front of the burnished stove and the microwave's immaculate readouts. Up here, my cross-cut hands greet the butter knife before the big spread. What I want now is a better ideogram for instead after the skull and crossbones on the pill bottles. What I want is a bucket for my panics and justifications, my coddled addendums down-tagged on the sales table each and every spring. Here we go with that old seasonal bullshit again. Earphones on so your eardrums don't get punched out near the exit. Tom Ford's on too, just for the flex of it. Is it too much to ask for quiet after all my losses in this insistent chorus of renew? Is it too much to be momentary in the morning grass, my suede kicks beaten up by the dew? It's wild to look at my old self, which is what we're always doing. Adrian Rich said you had to relive the moment to read a poem or to revise it. And, I'm glad that I'm not that person anymore. This poem's called Highest, after Travis Scott's song, I'm the highest in the room, which used to make me feel better than it did before that Astro World stuff. But it was the start of the poem, so I want to make sure and honor that. Highest. I rise up, therefore I must be, like Descartes if he didn't understand all the reading. I raise up like the highest black hand in history class. I am risen like the blood pressure of anybody black, mimeographed in the chronic textbook of this monochromatic year. That's infant mortality rate high. That's high top fade high. Almost everything up here hangs threadbare, squarely in the red line of summary excuses. Everything else up here, from the cop apologies to the solidarity statements, a double tap of distraction for somebody else's high sign. That's unemployment high. That's Machu Picchu high. What a relief hardly anybody stuck around to see me on the low side of the mountain. What a reprieve because I kept rising stealthily, past my historical anxiety, way past all my inherited hearsay, until I am so high up on the shelf, I level alchemy. Even up here, I'm adept at shrinking myself for safety. Even up here, my shoulders, they hunch like a small analogy. I really appreciate it. I'm going to read, actually, you know what? There are a couple of poems that exist in both of these books in different versions. Like I remixed them for the other book. So I want to read one of the ones that's in both of them, if that's okay. And then if you decide to read either of the books, you can figure out the difference. So it's like a little puzzle. Let's see. Look at me having to go to the table of contents of my own book. Yeah. So these sections these books were inspired by Funkadelic. So they're ekphrastic. I know you probably can't see it, but there's art in them. And this artist's name is Nicholas Galinan. He's an Inuit musician and painter and sculptor. And he made these crocodile shoes for my book. All right, so I'm going to read this section. It doesn't have a title. It's just from the Maggot Brain side. It's one long poem. Let's talk about the metronome of loss. I once had hungry chatter before it got unsustainable. I once beat everything around me down like an unrelatable heart. Once I started at the skull-browned edge before it got unrelatable and bland. I once had a red hammer in my hand and played it in the freight car of my singing emancipation. I once had 2 guitars from the pawn shop instead of feet, and I still couldn't swing. A woman so fine I quit eating meat of any kind. Once I had 16th notes where some people had gears, an altruistic Jones for touch despite my half veneers. So much, I didn't matter too much. I once had a heart, but I sold it for sauce. I once had some semi-gloss gators, but I lost them in the static. Really, I had a double cross and a 6-string Cadillac status. I lost both beauties in the alley traffic. Really, I had somebody who loved my interludes and strings together. Imagine anybody willing to love this busted up, wall-pedaled endeavor. So if you can see this, that's supposed to be Thanks to Nicholas and Kevin for lending their art to that. So I'm just going to read a few more poems, and then we can get to these chips. After the Parkland shootings, I mean, I hate to even be going back into this space, but after the Parkland shootings, I wrote a poem about the parts of the bullet, trying to think about them as something different. So I'm going to read a couple of parts from that. But before I do, I'm going to read another Somebody Else Sold the World poem. Somebody Else Sold the World. It's got an epigraph from Ben Okri, the great Nigerian novelist. Hunger is an antagonist. Outside, the antagonists are wet with flag colors and sycophancy, and I'm alone in the front room again, like it's 1982 again, when the power got cut off and the neighbors brawled like sullen countries over the demarcation of kitchen table and china hutch. Another revolution breaking in half, another slim-ringed alliance snapped under the weight of lost referendums. Where did their long-stemmed love go? Even now, I'm sitting in the window seat of this year of cottonmouth and disaffection as white people goose-step masklessly, and the antagonists imagine new ways to dismantle poor people, sitting, running, dreaming, coughing, seeming, cuffs for all of them, bullets too glinting in perpetual velocity. To be poor is to be blamed for your already busted happenstance. There's no changing that American tradition now, not even during a pandemic. Meanwhile, the antagonists belt out to their islands of isolation and repose. Anything they need is essential, while the rest of us, we stay in place like furniture. Y'all remember that? when people were Instagramming from their islands while the rest of us are sitting in there fighting over ketchup and toilet paper. Man, just, it's astounding how transparent the inequity became during that time. Right? All right, so we'll read a couple of these sections from this bullet parts poem and then wrap up with one more. Bullet parts, primer, then primer is brass and lead. The bullet base is made from the kind of brass that otherwise would have been a classroom doorknob or a cheap ring at one of those pre-quarantine gathering spots with games of chance and lights that surprise and delight. We're molded into new French horns for the underfunded youth band. No solos for those hornists, but they are still vital to the orchestra. At the center of the brass base, an igniter made out of lead. An igniter is only good at exploding, but the lead might have scratched love letters in meticulous penmanship or become part of the paint behind a periodic table of elements in the back of a public school classroom. PB, atomic number 82, is right there, lining Roman aqueducts and wine vats at the other end of the empire. It's right there, holding reactors and their radiations close as a friend in need, Walkman batteries running out in the middle of the slow jam again. The voices get thicker and deeper in the tape correction. In some other life, the primer would have probably gone in another direction. This is propellant, and that's gunpowder or cordite. Gunpowder, like poetry, was mistaken for an immortality potion. Poetry, like gunpowder, was first used to light up the sky with every color outside a summer window. AD 700, and the first propellant welcomed the new year with combustible surprise and eye-covering brightness. Gunpowder, easily misunderstood as medicine in its beauty, raising dragons and open palm stars bird level to the sky. While cordite can't be anything other than the killer it was mixed up to be. Since 1889, nitrocellulose, nitroglycerin, and petroleum jelly, a murderous clique. Cordite is only good at killing. Since 1889, cordite has made killing easier for the bright badged killers. Right, this will be the last one of those kind of poems I read. And it's the bullet itself, which is lead and alloy. Lead in the belly, copper and nickel skin in abundance each year. 10 billion bullets made in America each year. Enough bullets to kill the earth each year. The bullet hits 3 times faster than we can hear its concussion. The bullet breaks the air with 2,182 mile-an-hour emissions. The bullet is a grim onomatopoeia for itself. The bullet is a slim allegory for a gun-happy nation and its attendant segregations. Lead belly, wrapped in a grinning Freedom Amendment, the gun is almost more important than what comes out of it. A gun is always more important than the people in front of it. Here we are again, so many black women and black men in front of it. All right, this is the last one I'm going to read. Actually, I'm going to leave you something that's not me mad about gun violence, because there's a lot of that in this book, because we were in the streets, right, even in Indianapolis. I'm going to read a poem about Prince, because it feels like a good way to say, all right, then. I know he's not from Chicago, but Minneapolis is close. Where is he at? Okay, this poem is called I Remember When I Met You, Baby. And it's in response to, that's a quote from Prince's song, Head, which used to be my favorite song when I was a kid, but I had no idea what it was about. So I walk around, singing this song, having no idea. And I was like, I don't know, I must have been 8, 9 years old. I think he was a vital influence in my life. So it's called I Remember When I Met You, Baby, and I wrote it right after he died. So it's for Prince Rogers Nelson, 1958 to 2016. Everybody should go listen to this song when you get home, too, in honor of Prince. Prince is everywhere in his own head. Prince is everywhere, but here instead, lipstick and purple eyeliner smudging all the gyrating phonographs and magnificently healed ankles in this pre-matrimonial scene like regrettable graffiti. Prince's B-sides cut into the splits, then smooth both eyebrows staring right at the other B-sides like the daddy of a shotgun bride. Prince's side button satisfaction is actionable purpleness all wrapped up in lace is the best exit for an I'll call you sometime morning. Prince won't call because he doesn't have a phone. Prince, all alone, is more disco vision than lace premonition in 1981, motorcycling by some star-pocked lake that ain't Minnetonka on his way to the studio. Gigolo of frozen breath and breasts by every icebound water that glimmers like a dance floor turned on for every passerby to see. And breath, in, out, in, out, in, out, on the downbeat till it's a trochaic turn on. Prince wears his makeup to bed, so his face is always on. Underneath, Prince is light-skinned in Midwest, where one yellow is just as bright as the rest. His falsettoing fingers, his fancy hair, his magnanimous tongue, and baby, they were all stars there in their thigh-highs and finery. Prince is already there before he gets there. Minneapolis or Indianapolis, where every yellow boy with a jerry curl can make a close enough Prince after 10 p.m. Prince counts to 10, starting at 10, and the montage begins. Motorcycle rides to a thumping after party where the ladies and men in his purple circle believe in ruffled gestures like, I'm just a virgin and I'm on my way to be wed. That's when two purple doors push open into a steamy bathtub of surprise. There are doors and doves everywhere. That's when there's an impossibly deep Prince breath, and then...
Adrian Matejka. We stole him from Indianapolis. We're not sad. We're not ashamed. Please give one more round of applause for everybody who read tonight. Thank you all for being here. All right, so that is our program for the evening. I'm going to invite you to hang out, to chat with folks, maybe meet a poetry community member you don't already know. I issue this invitation to all introverts like myself. Maybe you meet one other community member tonight. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, so what you're gonna do, there are snacks to help with that, there's wine to help with that, there's delicious sparkling water to help with that. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go out these doors and you're gonna continue on the hallway into the kitchen where the stuff is, then they're gonna go on out to the garden. Cool? Before you do that, you're gonna stop off at this table over here to my left where Adrian will be selling his books. You will purchase them. He might even sign them for you because he's kindly. And that's it. Thank you so much.